So on Tuesday, we began to look at Genesis 47 to 49, which show us a lot about Jacob and how he finishes the race, how Israel finishes his race faithfully. He may have been stumbling at the beginning of it, like Eric Little in the 40-yard dash, but God eventually picked him up, put him back on the track, and he is running to the finish line, spiritually speaking. Yesterday, we saw him do that and how he showed Pharaoh that he was content with the promises of God. And that is actually, he has more to offer Pharaoh than Pharaoh has to offer him. And today, we're going to also see how he shows God's faithfulness to his children, his grandchildren, his great-grandchildren, by how he ends his life. You know, one of the most vivid memories that I have of growing up is waking up in the morning and going out into our living room and seeing my father sitting at our dining room table with his Bible open before him, praying and studying God's word. It's burned into my memory that he was there almost every morning. I expected to see him there with his Bible when I got up. And that, even more than all the theological truths that he had taught me, has really impacted and affected me. I saw that my godly father was that way because he spent the beginning of his day every morning with God. I saw that his hope was in Jesus and not in the latest news or political party. I saw that what was most important to him was devotions and prayer, and that he did that before anything else, before looking at the news, before checking messages, before he even ate breakfast. You know, in Genesis 47, 27 to 31, Israel shows the generations of his family that come after him, where his hopes really lay, and what is most important to him. Now, at this point, 17 years have passed since what we talked about yesterday. Israel is now 147 years old, and his family has prospered and multiplied greatly in Egypt, which is in great contrast to the decline of Egypt as he goes up, as the part that precedes the part we're about to read shows. But look at what he says when he calls Joseph to him. And when the time drew near that Israel must die, he called his son Joseph and said to him, "If I have found favor in your sight, put your hand under my thigh and promise to deal kindly and truly with me. Do not bury me in Egypt, but let me lie with my fathers. Carry me out of Egypt and bury me in their burying place." He said, "I will do as you have said." And he said, "Swear to me." And he swore to him. And Israel bowed himself upon the head of his bed. Now that might seem kind of like a strange request, since he had been living the last 17 years in Egypt and had really prospered there. I mean, why would he want to go back to be buried in Canaan? All that he had ever had there was trouble. He was chased by his brother there. His two sons, Simeon and Levi, slaughtered all the men of the city of Shechem after Dinah was raped there. His son Joseph was taken from him there. They almost starved to death there. Why want to go back there? For one very important reason. The land of Canaan represented God's promises to Abraham, Isaac, and to him. The promises of God outweigh everything else that happened there. God had promised him to make him a great nation, that a redeemer would come from that nation, and that he would give them a land where God would dwell with them in peace forever. Canaan represented all of that to Israel, and he wants to go back there. Now, Canaan isn't itself the land, the real land that God promised. Hebrews 11:10 tells us that he, this is Abraham, was looking forward to a city whose foundations, whose designer and builder is God. And Israel was doing the same thing. It was, quote, a heavenly city, as Hebrews 11:16 puts it. But the physical land of Canaan represented all of those promises to Israel. Do you see what he's doing? He's sending a very important message to his family. He's telling them, even though you are prospering here in Egypt, Even though everything is going great, this is not the land that God promised us. This is not where we belong. This is not what's most important. God's promises and his faithfulness are. He's showing them what is most important to him, where his hope is, because he knows that the prosperity of Egypt will tempt them or fool them into thinking that they are where they need to be. You know, youth, we are in a world where we generally live really comfortably. And it's so easy to put our hope in our technology, our good grades, our family, our country, our possessions, our friendships, our popularity, our intellect, or something else in this world. Yet all of that is still Egypt for us. If there's anything this pandemic is teaching us right now, is that all of this is Egypt. This is the land of our affliction. Our hope is in a new creation that Jesus has won for us, and he will bring one day. So the question this text has for us is, how are we reminding ourselves of that hope? I mean, you guys are watching this right now, so obviously you're doing some type of morning devotion, which is a great start. But how else? How are you reminding yourself of that hope? Ask your parents. How do they remind themselves of that hope? And also, you may not be as old as Israel is, but your example still impacts others. So how are you showing your younger siblings or your friends where your hope lies? Do they see you start your day off with social media and video games? Or do they see what is most important to you as Jesus, God's word, prayer, and that future hope that is coming? Like my dad showed me, like Israel showed his children. So you guys think about that, and I'll see you again tomorrow.